It's Friday afternoon. I'm in my shed. Obviously, it's been a very long week for some reason, so I don't think I'm going to get much done tonight. And I'm meeting a friend of mine in the pub, meaning I'll sit in my little corner there and video conference to a friend of mine who's in a remote location himself. But a few small things. I got my new welding flux. This is Sigweld aluminium flux. I'll see how that works compared to the other flux. I'm expecting it'll work exactly the same. What else have I done? I bought more welding rod just because I'm going through it fairly quickly. So I got more of the 4043 aluminium TIG rod. That seems to be working really well for me. And I got some new welding gloves. A lot of the gloves I've got are these TIG welding gloves, and they tend to be quite thick. These ones were, I think it might be deer leather, and they're really soft, which makes it a lot easier to do the welding. I find some of those big welding gloves are just a little bit too stiff, I guess, in the fingers. But this is really nice and supple. It's very difficult to put on a glove with one hand, but you get the idea anyway. Just for being able to hold the welding rods and hold the torch and that kind of thing makes it much easier. So they were a good find. The problem is often when you're buying them online, they're never expensive, but you don't know quite what you're going to get, how thick they are. The other thing I won recently was another welding torch, and I didn't really need another welding torch, but this one looked interesting. I was the only person who bid on it. Well, rather nobody bid on it, so they offered it to me for $40, and it was to be picked up from one of our local sort of charity shops. It's like a workshop where they have people who are differently abled who make things, and they've got a little shop there and they sell things. So I figured, oh well, it's helping them out. So I went and got it. It came with tons of these tips. It's actually quite a nice torch. It's fairly weighty, but it turns out I can't use it because it's so old. It came with some hoses on it. But on the modern torches, the acetylene hose is normally left-hand thread, and this one isn't. So it was obviously built before that convention came in. So both the oxygen and the fuel valves on this have the same thread fitting. And I think the problem is I won't be able to get an acetylene hose that has that fitting on it. So you can see on these ones, they're all the opposite thread, and they've got usually a sort of cutout, that little mark around the nut to show you that it's reverse thread. Same down here. So I don't think I can connect it up to even try it, but that's a bit of a shame. But I looked up the company. So this, it's called the General, the torch, and it seems like it was a New Zealand company. I think on here it says Industrial Gases Limited, and I did look online and I haven't been able to find out much about it. There was a company in the 1930s called, it had a really good name, it was the Acetone Illuminating and Welding Company, and I believe this came from there, possibly. But I haven't been able to find out much about them or the sort of stuff they sold. But came with another striker, a little acetylene gauge, another gas bottle wrench. I think these are used welding tips. Got plenty of those. And lots more of these tips. I've already got a whole bunch of these. Anytime you buy an old welding torch, it seems to come with loads and loads of those. So interesting. You can get some sort of adapter, but it's a bit hard knowing what you get. So I did find a local place selling an adapter, but it doesn't give enough detail to know what it adapts from. I need to go from left hand thread to right hand thread, basically, on one of those. So that was the other thing. I think that's really it for now. I have talked to the register spares. They will have the brushes. There's a couple of sets. I'm not sure which one I need, but there's I think the club has a rally thing on at the moment, so I have to wait till they're back, and then I'll be able to get new brushes for this. There's the Coventry Climax there. This, I've now figured out exactly how you start it. So what works is you turn on the fuel. This is choke, little bit of throttle, and then what I find is you can roll it over. It's about 10 times with the ignition off, and then it's usually enough to do it. Oh, no, it won't work. That's not going to work because I took the battery out of it. The battery is been sitting on the battery charger. It's actually been sitting there for a couple of days because I forgot I put it on, but that seems fine. So we this would actually work either way around. It's just not so efficient one way around. Open the fuel. I suspect this will go now. Not the choke on. So it does start easily when you do it properly. I guess that was all I was trying to say there. And I did get another bottle of oxygen. So this weekend will probably be a bit more welding practice and start shaping some panels, I guess. It's the weekend now. I think I still need more welding practice, especially with this new flux, but I thought it's time to actually start making something to weld together. So I've started, or I'm just about to start on the panels, the body panels. I'm going to start with the top here. So I've cut a blank. All I have to do is make that fit on there, pretty much. I think this first bit shouldn't be too bad. Got the wheeling machine out. This one's going to just have a bit of curve in it that way, of course, and a little bit of shape so it's not flat. And I will do the weld seams will be kind of along here, probably. And again, it's just going to be a matter of making the little panels that go on the sides. The different sizes, of course, because the the size of the doors isn't the same from side to side, so this side is a little bit bigger, but I think that'll make sense to put the weld in sort of along there. But start with this top one, see how I go. It's been a long time since I've done this. I'm not going to bother filming it. It doesn't matter how many videos you watch of people using a wheeling machine, unless you're doing it yourself. It's really, there's not a lot you can say about it. You sort of wheel the panel backwards and forwards, you get a feel for it, you see the shape forming in the panel. It's one of those things that you just have to do it. It's the only way to really learn. So I'll give that a try. I'll give that panel a clean off first. It doesn't really matter for me because I'm not trying for a polished aluminium finish. It's going to be painted, so it's all going to be scuffed up anyway, probably with 80 grit before you prime it. But you do want the panel clean before you start wheeling it, so you don't wheel crap into it basically, or make marks all over it. But you can see the sheet of aluminium is already pretty scratched up. That'll be fine. One of the reasons we use 1.6 is it's easier to weld, and there's plenty of material there to file back, sand back to get it all flat. I'm literally 10 minutes into this, I guess. I've just run the panel through the wheel just to give it a tiny bit of crown, so it's wasn't flat. And now it's just a matter of sort of bending it so that it fits the car. And there's nothing really complicated about this. You just kind of bend it. I don't know how to describe it. I put it up here, and just by hand, I just bend it where it needs to go. So I'll get it sort of roughed in like that, and then you know, obviously you come back and you smooth it out a bit. I'm trying to avoid getting kinks in it, but every so often there's a little bit of a kink there. Yeah, it's one of these things you can't really easily describe. You just change the shape of the metal to match the shape of the car, the frame. So obviously the most curve's going to be at the edges here. So I'm sort of working up to those. I'm trying to get it to sit flat across the top, in the middle. I think you can see it's almost flat. If anything, it's actually a little bit concave in the middle there. And the aluminium doesn't have to tightly touch all the panels. In fact, you almost don't want it to, because it'll rattle. So it'll be tight around the edges. You know, maybe when I actually attach it to the frame, I'll put something in there, some tape or some sort of strip, some rubber, something like that, foam, just so it doesn't rattle around. But the skin should be rigid enough. It shouldn't have any sort of motion in it like that. You can see the marks from the wheel, but you can't feel them. So that's just surface marks. I haven't gouged it or put tram tracks in it. It's just more apparent. I'm about an hour into this now, and it's getting better. A lot like software, we have a saying in software that the last 10% of a project takes 90% of the time. That's kind of the same with this. So I got it fitting as well as I could flat, or as a panel with no shape in it. I use, this is actually my TIG welding gas cylinder, as a former, and I just sort of bend it over that. You make bonnets the same way. You use that to bend these curves. And now the thing I have to do is, the car isn't flat, of course. It's got shape to it, and it's actually got quite a bit of shape. We use the straight edge here. So obviously there's curve there. So that's quite a bit of crown. And to get this panel to sit flat, I need to get the same shape into this, basically. So you kind of just carefully figure out where you need the shape to be. This is why I've got my sandbag on it, just to weigh it down. And what I'm trying to do is figure out where do I need to stretch it so that I've got more curvature. And it's kind of all through the middle here. It's quite a bit. The two sides, I think this side is fitting a little bit better, but if you push down the corners, you'll see the middle will kind of pop up. So what I'm trying to do is bring the middle up so the corners go down. I think that's the right way to do it. Like I say, I'm not an expert at this. I'm just making it up as I go along. But you can sort of see as you work it if it's going in the right direction. And I use my straight edge to kind of see. You can see how it's hollow in the middle and it needs to have shape. So I just keep wheeling it to try and stretch that out, to bring that up. It actually needs crown kind of like down here. So I think that's the right thing to do. I just keep working it, bringing it up here so that it matches the curve of the frame, and that'll pull the corners down. As you wheel it, you're also putting curvature into it, not just compound curve. You get shape, and that's why there's too much arch in it at the moment. But that's easy enough to flatten. You just basically put it on the ground. You just bend it. So to deal with that, just put it down on the ground and literally flatten it down. And as you put more and more shape into it, you feel the shape. So if I try to flatten that out now, it won't sit flat anymore because it's got curve in it. So you can see that you're definitely adding shape into it. Like I say, it's taken me an hour to get this far, and it's probably going to take me the rest of the day to get this to the point where it sort of sits naturally on the car. I've got it on backwards. That's the other thing. It's always worth marking a center line or some reference points and marking which is the front and which is the back. Especially in the early stages, it's easy to get it wrong. Now I'm getting more shape into this. It's pretty easy to tell. But eventually you want it at the point where you don't have to clamp it down, you don't have to put weights on it, it'll sit, it'll drape nicely across the frame. So, as I say, I think I'm going in the right direction. I could be completely wrong and you end up scrapping it, but at least then it gives me lots of spare aluminium to practice my welding, because that's going to be coming soon as well. I should also explain the gloves. The gloves are because when you wheel aluminium, you end up covered in black, I guess it's aluminium dust. Your hands will just get black, basically. So I just wear the gloves just to keep clean. Of course, you end up ripping them all the time, which is annoying, because then you go to try and change them and your hands are all sweaty and you can't get the gloves on. I've actually got some talcum powder over there I put in the gloves first. But we're getting there slowly. Yeah, it's just a matter of trying to figure out where to put the shape. I have about another hour and a half in this. I did break for lunch. Not actually feeling the best at the moment. I think I'm getting a little bit sick, so I'm trying to take it fairly easy, but it is getting there. And like I say, trying to get it perfect, it gets harder and harder the closer you get to the end. Quite literally too, because you're working the metal, so it's getting really hard and quite springy. But I'm kind of getting this shape. When you run your hands over it, you can feel, like I can feel a low spot there. I need to sort of bring that up. You can see why, because I wheeled there and I wheeled there and I missed the middle. Again, I don't need it to be 100% perfect. I just want it to look tidy. I'm not building a show car, but there's still a lot to do to get you can sort of see as you bring these corners down as they need to, this is coming up, so I still need way more shape in here. There's actually a lot more shape there than I initially thought, so this has to curve. But it's getting closer. It's definitely getting there. Just lots and lots of wheeling. And you can see if I take the clamps off, it's more or less staying in place. But if I take this off, you can see the spring in it. And the easiest way to see where the shape is, if I can do this one-handed, is if you put it down on the carpet and sort of sit on it to try and flatten it out. You can see now where I've got shape. I think what I've done wrong is I need to stretch more in the middle. I've stretched too much here, so I need more of that sort of shape. But you can see there's definitely shape there. But you can see the spring on it. So it's just a matter of doing that. I can see there's a low there as well. But yeah, if I can get more curve into it like that and like that, if you look at the body, you can see it. Maybe I think the lens is distorting it, but you can see the shape. It is a barrel-shaped body, so it is going to be tricky. Like I say, just keep working at it, and eventually, hopefully, it'll fit. When I make these panels and I weld those on, when you do that weld, this will all get soft. It'll all get annealed. So you end up sort of hammering it to get it smooth again, but you want the shape to be as close as possible before you weld it. It'll distort when it welds, but when you hammer out the distortion, it'll go back to that shape, theoretically. So I'm just going to keep plugging away at it. A bit more work, and I'm on the right track. It's just a matter of stretching out all this bit here so that these corners will curve in the right way. You may ask why I didn't use my slip rollers to actually put the flat curve into it this way. The reason is they're too wide. So my rollers over there are only 600mm wide. And of course, anything you want to put through it will be 620mm wide or bigger. So I couldn't do that. But what I was able to do is, the corner here is kind of a funny shape where because it curves in. So I was able to put the corners through the roller. So I was able to put it through with like that. And that helped to put this sort of bend in it that direction. So I've got it fitting a lot better that way now. It's close. It's one of those things where if you push down this bit, it fits. If you push down this bit, it fits. But if you do both at the same time, it pops out in the middle. So that's why I keep needing to. I need to add more shape in there. When I first started, it was very flat. But now there's definitely crown on it. So possibly need a bit, maybe a bit more up here. It's tricky to know. And then I think when I'm done, I'll be able to blend the two sides together. I've done a little bit of that in the middle, but I don't want it to go up like that. So I will have to just blend it through the middle, I think. But definitely getting closer, bit by bit. I decided I wasn't getting anywhere very fast with trying to wheel the shape into it, so I resorted to drastic measures, which is basically use a big hammer and bash the metal from the inside where you want to stretch it. I'm still kind of in the middle of smoothing it out, so I stretched all this out and I get a much better fit now. But the problem is you now have a big lumpy bit here, so I have to kind of blend it in to get this to sit properly again. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but there's a big low spot all the way through there. The shape around here is now looking pretty good. The panel has got a bit of a strange twist in it, but it has given me that curvature I needed in there. I can feel underneath there where the frame is, and it's matching it pretty well. So now what I need to do is smooth all of this in, which means just wheeling all of this. And I think I've got a low spot sort of in the middle there. And also that corner, maybe see it sort of dished in a little bit. This corner's not too bad. So the way I can do that is either on the wheel, or it's easier just to tap that out with the hammer. You just put in lots of little dents and then you use the wheel to smooth them out. I didn't get a shot of it when it was in that state. It looks horrendous when you do it. It looks like you've completely knackered the panel. And to be honest, I may still have completely knackered the panel, but it's definitely getting me closer to the shape I want. So I think I'll keep sort of blending that in. It's getting a bit late. Yeah, I can feel there's a flat spot there. This is, your hands get covered in gunk. So I think if I just keep working on this and smoothing it out, that little lump there might be a bit too much. No, it's on the frame, more or less. It's about 1/8 of an inch off, maybe. So I think once I bring that out smooth, there's a big hollow in here as well, because all the shape was here, so you need to kind of blend this in to match. I think I'm getting there. I did mention this was going to take me all day. I knew it would take a long time, and this is probably one of the easiest panels. So this one's a bit of a practice one, really. But I'll keep at it. I ended up having to go and sort something else out, so it's 5:45 in here now, and the sun's gone down, so it's getting freezing. My diesel heater I need to look at because it's making a funny noise. But I'm kind of getting there with this. I may have overcooked it when I stretched the panel, but it's not too bad. I think now it is just a case of trying to blend it in where it's not quite smooth, and that should hopefully work. And you can see where putting the shape in the bottom has made the top sink down. So it's a matter of sort of blending all of that and smoothing that in, which will be tomorrow's job, I guess. But it's kind of looking like it should, I guess. And then once I've done this one, of course, I'll make the panel to go there and the one on the other side, and those ones will be welded together. And that's the front half of the car done. And then it's the back half, which is going to be a lot harder. But that's probably a good trick, is instead of trying to do everything on the wheel, make it go faster by stretching things out with the mallet. The only tricky thing with that is it's really hard to keep it even. So when you're wheeling, you can keep things fairly even by doing the same number of passes and that kind of thing. With the hammer, it's a bit harder to keep everything the same on both sides. You can see along here, it's all wavy. The surface looks really battered, but there's a few scratches in it now. But nothing that won't be able to be filed out and sanded smooth. So that'll be tomorrow's job. It's the next morning. It's quite a nice day for a winter's day. We're both suffering from a bit of a cold. She's worse than I am, so she's still indoors. But I came out here anyway. Find a bit of exercise is good. And been working away on this panel some more. It's looking pretty beaten up from all the wheeling marks and things on it. It's a bit lumpy in places, but eventually all of that will be smoothed out. But I'm getting a lot closer. What I found was the most effective thing to do was beat it out from the inside with the mallet. It was just taking too long to wheel and shape, so I've been using my big wooden mallet here and looking for the low spots and sort of shrinking them out, tapping them out, and I can still see some. So around here there's a lot of shape, and around there, and often when you get the light in just the right place you can see all the bits that aren't right. The other thing I've discovered is my new welding gloves, which I think mentioned a really soft leather. I can't remember if it was deer leather or, yeah, I think it was deer leather. These are really nice, and I've found these actually work pretty well for doing the aluminium work as well. They're soft enough that I can still feel the worst of the highs and lows in the panel. Here is really lumpy. So you can see the black that comes off the aluminium. So it's just a matter of continually doing this. What I'm finding is, oh, I can see every time I look at it, I find more things wrong. Because there's so much shape in it, I'm getting a lot of curve in it as well. So I have to keep kind of reverse curving it to take the curve out of it. So there's a difference between curve and shape. So the shape is the shrinking and stretching. The curve is just sort of bending. So as you put the stretch into it, you also get shape in it, which you then have to take out. So if I just kept wheeling this backwards and forwards, it would end up in a circle probably. So every so often I take it off and I put it upside down and I sort of squish it out again. It's a little bit springy still, but it's almost sitting by itself now, which is kind of what I want. I've also ended up with a little bit of a twist in it for some reason. You can see it's skewing around, but I think as the shape gets closer and closer, the twist gets smaller and smaller. I've been a bit rough on the wheel, so I've got some tracking marks in it. Again, there's plenty of metal there to file smooth, sand smooth, and then coat a filler before paint. Yeah, it's just a matter of working on it, so it's taking me longer than a day. But often I can see there's a big dent in the top. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera. All those kind of things. That's where I figure out where to hit on the back of the panel and sort of stretch it out with the mallet. You don't have to hit it that hard. You can see the twist in it when I hold it like that as well. So some of that you can take out manually. It's just a matter of sort of twisting it back into shape. And I thought this would be the easy panel. Another hour in, couple of hours in. It's hard to keep track. It's getting better, getting closer. I still have too much curve in it, so I have to keep flattening it out so it's a bit springy, hence the weight on top. But I'm starting now to see, you can see if you press that down, it fits pretty well, both sides. Of course, these edges are all hammered round, so that will pull it round a little bit. But kind of with it, a little bit more weight. But now I can start with the straight edge, and I can see easily where the lows are. So sort of put it on there. There's a low spot in the middle there. It's probably about a 1/16 of an inch too low. Comes all the way in through here. This was a good flexible steel rule. I think I got it from Super Cheap. Sometimes you'd think this is cheap and nasty, a steel rule like this, but actually having a long flexible straight thing like this is actually quite useful. So you can see, I kind of lay that on there where the gap is. It's getting closer. And then it curves off quite a lot through there. The other thing I was doing was this piece of stick to represent. Move my weight. It's a bit tricky, but I can. I think it's all moved. You have to keep lining it back up with your marks. You can see it's twisted. One of the other reasons it... Whoops. I was going to say one of the other reasons for the twist in it is because the frame's not symmetrical. Yeah, that's a bit better. But with my stick here, break that off. That kind of gives me the line of where the top of the bonnet will go. It's a bit too thin to see, but that gives me that line, and I can sort of check that it kind of blends in nicely to the top of the scuttle. I did sit in the car just to see what it would look like and see how noticeable all the waves in it were. When you're in the car, it's not that noticeable. Might be worse when it's painted. See another, there's a low spot there, I can see that. But the tricky thing is I couldn't open the door to get in because it's overhanging the edge of the door. So I had to get in without opening the door, which is very tricky. Getting out is even more tricky. I almost got stuck. You kind of have to bend your legs in unnatural ways to get in under there. Like I say, you keep noticing places where you can see this. There's a low spot there. It's flat there. Comes down. Hollow, hollow, hollow. Flat again. I want to get this as perfect as I can now, but after it's all welded together, you do go over the whole thing again with a hammer and dolly and a file, and things like that you'd be able to sort of metal finish out at that point. But it is getting there. I think it's got the right shape. Oh, I can see there's a hollow there. The more you look at it, the more you find wrong. Probably it looks way better than it actually is on camera. I know Kyle in his videos always mentions that everyone says, oh, it looks absolutely perfect. And I kind of know from my own experience, yeah, that's because the camera is hiding a lot of stuff if you looked at it up close. There's probably still quite a bit of work to do. Yeah, definitely getting there. There's another channel, I think I've mentioned it before, I've been meaning to mention it for a while, called Gasolini. I'll put a link. He built a car from scratch, aluminium bodied car. So he shows doing a lot of this as well. His welding technique is similar to mine, not exactly the same, a little bit different, but same idea, shaping the panels and welding them all together and then getting it all to fit. So that's quite a good channel to watch. I did recently stop watching, been watching Auto Alex a little bit. And it's good, I enjoy it. They do some interesting things, but I then realized that pretty much half their videos are just advertisements. And now that I've seen that, I can't unsee it. Just all the product placement and the sponsors, and it's like, oh, okay, I've just realized this is more an advertisement than car content. So I've just taken a break for a little while. It's one of those things where once you've seen it, it's a bit hard to ignore until you've had a break. So there's lots of other good channels around. The other one I've just started watching, which I just found out about, is the Bracket Factory. So that one's good as well. Very similar. I think we'd get on pretty well because we seem to have fairly similar sorts of interests, I think. But, I think I'm going to stop for lunch for a bit and come back to this. I have switched over to my highest crown wheel, not because I need the highest crown, but because it's got the narrowest contact patch. So what I'm finding, so the wheels on my machine, they're not continuous radius, they're flat. And if you look online, there's all sorts of debate about what's better and how they should be. And I think even the experts disagree with each other on what works best. But what I'm finding with these ones, where it's got quite a wide flat, if I crank the pressure up too much, I start getting train lines from where it's only touching on these high points. So what I'm finding now is if I use this one, I'm getting a much smoother effect, but my tracking has to be way closer together because it's much thinner. But it is slowly smoothing the panel out. So it is getting there. I wonder if I could reshape those. I don't know if it would make a difference. I'd have to set them up on the lathe somehow and make them smooth. I don't know. But the ones I've got work. Like I say, I think I'm just more likely to put tracking marks in it because of those high spots either side of the flat. Yeah, I think I'm going to take a break for a bit and then come back to it. Still more bashing. I can show how I've been bringing up some of the really low spots by hammering them and then wheeling it smooth. So an example would be here, where you can see there's a definite hollow there. It starts coming right around there. But it's a definite low spot. So what I'll do is I'll show how I take it over to the sandbag and just sort of stretch it out a little bit and then wheel it smooth. I've been doing some here as well. It's still a bit lumpy because I haven't finished wheeling it, but you can get the shape right roughly, try it up on the car and then smooth it all out later. So I've circled the area I want to bring up, and what I do is with the panel turned over, I can figure out approximately where it is I need to hit, and then I whack it with my mallet. Not too hard. I'm only trying to get, you know, sort of a 1/16 of an inch extra height out of it. So I just do it gently. I'm not going to be able to show actually doing it. One, it'll be really loud, and two, it's a bit hard to film, but I'll stretch it out. You can see where I've done some there, hopefully. Still needs sort of blending in, but I'll stretch it out and you can see what it looks like. Let's see if I can see. I think if you get the light just right, you'll be able to see that it's all lumpy there. It's a bit tricky to see. And what I try to do is stretch it more in the middle and then sort of blend it out. Don't stretch it as much because I don't want a lump. I want this whole area pulled up. So now I should be able to put that through the wheeling machine and smooth this out and blend it all in, and hopefully that will have come up a bit. You can see how just doing that has distorted the panel there. It's put curve in it. That's what I was talking about before. So there's shape and there's curve. That's curved the panel. So I can uncurve that as well. I can just flatten it out again. And I think I've hit the limit of my ability with the wheel. I've kind of reached the point where no matter what I do, I can't get it better, and in fact I'm starting to make it worse. So I think now's the time for me to stop. It's still pretty lumpy, and you can see where some of the lumps are. There's a hollow there, there's some hollows in here. I think I overdid it in here and raised that up a little bit too much, which is why there's a hollow there now. I think this is too high. But this is why you wear gloves, because you end up looking like the Tin Man. But the fit is pretty good. It's still got quite a bit of spring in it. So I've got it held down with the clamps at the moment. But I think once the edges get wrapped around, it'll be fine. It looks okay. It doesn't look perfect. It's going to look like an old car, which has had a few dings by the looks of it, which is interesting because if you look at the period photos, they're all in terrible shape. They're always all dinged up. Kind of, it's a bit hard to see in some of these pictures, but I wonder what the factory finish on these was actually like. Better than this, I'm sure. Well, I'd hope so. But I think I'm kind of at the point where I can start on the next panel. This all needs trimming. These edges need folding in a little bit more, but that'll all happen once I start welding it and it's all annealed. I think I've come... You can see that spring is holding it up, but it doesn't take much to get it to sit down properly. So I think what I would have to do next is look at probably trimming this and making these panels that go on here. Now that's going to be a little bit interesting with the hinges there. So I'm wondering if it's almost at the stage where I need to take the doors off, take these off and the hinges off so I can make the panel bigger. I'm going to do the doors last because I think I may need to modify those. I may not have enough gap for the two pieces of aluminium. Might be a little bit tight, so I can always shave bits off the edges of the doors, or actually what I can do is I've got shims in there so I can space the door to be exactly where I want it. But yeah, it's a bit disappointing. Kind of, it's really annoying being able to get it so close and then just not any further. And the more you try, the further away you get from it being good. So I've definitely overdone it there. It came up too high. Oh well, I'll keep going. I think I'm probably going to stop for the day. Not feeling the best, but bit of a cold basically. So I think the basic shape's there. It's definitely barrel shaped. It'll be interesting to see what those side panels look like. There's way more shape in this than I actually imagined, trying to get this curve around this corner. It's a lot more than I anticipated. I think I've slipped. It's not... Oh yeah, it's moved around. You can see my marks don't line up. That's why there's more overhang on one side than the other. All these little marks and things, these would come out with some hammer and dolly. That's not a big deal. So even though the wheel leaves it looking really scarred, it's not as bad as it really looks. But, oh well, starting to get the idea of what it's going to look like anyway. That's probably it for the weekend.